Well, please, please, please open those doors. Some of us are not young enough to wait. I'm Linda Mac Dougall. I am the owner of Mac Dougall Consulting for Disabilities, and I work mostly with seniors. Once in a while, I get a disabled younger person, but it's very rare. I'm usually disabled seniors. I'm a massage therapist. I have a master's in counseling psychology.
What sort of training did you have around massage therapy and working particularly with that cohort?
I got retrained to become a massage therapist, and since I'd always worked with the disabled and I was becoming a senior myself, I was the oldest one in the class.
The skin integrity, how is that? Like, is that an issue when you're massaging?
It can be. It depends on the person. Some people have really good skin integrity well into senior years, but
Yeah.
other people do not. I was just talking to a lady yesterday, and she was saying that, just a little dog had jumped up on her, and she said, I was afraid of it because it was going to tear my skin.
I would also like to ask you if you have any personal experiences or examples that you want to share about working with people with dementia throughout your amazing journey.
Well, I'll tell you one of the odd stories about that. I was doing massage prior to the pandemic at a couple of senior care homes. And one of my ladies was quite sharp and all together, and she was seeing me once a week. And then one day she just vanished. And I let her have a little time thinking she'd come back or talk to me or do something. And I heard nothing from her. So I started asking the staff, what's happened to her? Well, she had been diagnosed with dementia and had just crawled into a shell. I thought that was really weird because she was just fine the week before. About a year later, I'm walking across the parking lot of the same place, and a car comes up and stops me, and it's her and her daughter. And her daughter said, can you come up to the apartment? I said, sure. So I went up. This poor daughter had been fighting the doctors for the full year because she had been put on a new med. And the daughter noticed the difference almost immediately, and it took her a year to get them to take it off.
Did they give any reasons that you know of as to why they couldn't change it quicker?
Doctors up here are an interesting breed, and obviously I can't talk for all of them. They seem to think old folks are just old folks and they know best. I challenged my doctor last time I was in to see him a couple of weeks ago because one of my big pushes is I go places, like I live in the senior community and I go to senior places and I see seniors everywhere I go, and they're not buying correct equipment. They're not using the equipment they have correctly. Nobody's training them too much on anything. And so they're killing themselves because they're making themselves weak. They're making themselves in pain. And when you're pain, you're depressed. When you're depressed, you die earlier.
Spiral, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
a spiral. You become isolated and you become sad and lonely and disconnected and no longer feeling like you belong. And we've got to change that. We've got to make the spiral go up.
That's what I've been fighting for. I do a talk called The Vices of Mobility Devices, and the damage done by misuse, because it's everywhere. I thought before the pandemic it was maybe something local here, that somebody wasn't doing something right. I started doing podcasts, and it's across the country.
It's across the world.
Across the world. There you go.
Out of the interviews that we've had, the main point is that people that look after our elders or older people with dementia, they need more education and training because they don't know how to cater to those specific needs. It's happening everywhere, and that's why this movement is so important, to get people to realize that.
Well, I did my Vices of Mobility Devices talk this was years ago now, but I did it at one of the local homes. And this little lady comes up to me afterwards and she goes, "Will you go upstairs with me and see something in my room?" I said, "Sure." So after everybody's questions were over, I walked up there to see her room. And here was this little tiny lady. You just knew looking at her, she had osteoporosis. She was just miniature. And she shows me her bed. Her bed is a pedestal bed. I'd never seen one before. I'd heard of them, but I'd never seen one. And this woman couldn't even get her buttocks on it. And she would be almost falling on her head, bending, trying to scoot her butt up as far as it could go to get on the bed. She would get a little purchase, and then she would literally throw her legs over to get on the bed, and then she would crawl, clawing to the middle of the bed. I was flabbergasted that somebody hadn't seen that when it was being put in her room to begin with, and why it was still there. Because she could have easily just fallen on her head, and that could have been the end of her. We don't know.
It's like death by device, it sounds to me.
I think it's an education piece around assistive technology. Having worked within the assistive technology area myself as well, and it is education. There are so many amazing products out there that are available, but that's part of what we tried to achieve with Leaf, was to be able to educate people and show them what's there. You know, there's actually a sheet that you can put on a bed, on a double bed, that has silk in the middle. So if you've got winter pajamas on and you get into your flannelette bed, how it just like trying to move easily. Yeah. But this has silk. So when you sit on the bed to move into the bed, you can just so easily glide in and glide out. So something as simple as that is an assistive technology.
I had a lady when I first moved here. I had her call me out of the blue and ask me about a drug, and I hadn't heard of it before. I also do drug nutrient depletion training. I studied up on it, then I went over to her house, and that was an eye-opener, because not only was she another little diminutive woman, but she had a recliner that was way too big for her. Her feet didn't come close to the ground. And what she had done was she had taken these muscle relaxant pills that the doctor had given her, and she had tried to slide off of the recliner, and her legs were just rubber, and she went down. I told her, well, first of all, it's a new drug. God knows how much they know about it. And number two, you're given the same dose as a football player. What good is that? You know?
Oh my gosh.
Seniors, we don't metabolize, we don't digest as well, we don't do a lot of things well. And so therefore, things stay in our systems longer than for younger people. And so if we're giving them the same doses we give young people, and bigger people in this case as well, then they have a half-life that continues on for longer. And so she's getting dose upon dose multiplying in her body.
You're talking about, as we get older, it becomes harder to metabolize and process things that we put into our body. And this might be kind of an offshoot, but do you think that as we get older, it becomes harder to metabolize and work through loneliness? Do we have the capacity as we get older? Like, how do we move through that? What do you think?
Well, I think you're right, because first of all, we don't have the help younger people do. I mean, we isolate more anyway, in many ways. I think there's a hidden drug abuse and alcohol abuse because of that. I've seen some drunks in community living situations in care homes, which is not pretty. And then other places that offer alcohol. And I keep wondering, is that really a wise idea? Are you going to be limiting people or what? How are you managing this? So far, I guess there haven't been anything big going on with that, because I haven't heard anything. Another issue I have is that I don't see a lot of specialists that are engaged with our clients. And in this case, it would be a clergy or a therapist or at least a grief group. Our whole world is shrinking. We've lost people. We've lost places. We've lost
Wow.
everything. Just like birth brings us in, death and getting to there is squeezing us back out.
We tend to ruminate more as we sit in the confines of those four walls, and what's on the TV doesn't appeal to us, and we're thinking about the world. Like, it seems that that's a really powerful statement. How do we reinvigorate the space, do you think, to make a difference in that? Which designations do you think that is best to come from?
Well, I think it's going to depend on the person. And it also depends on, and this is something that nobody seems to really address anywhere, not only in the senior space, but in general life, is some of us are introverts and some of us are extroverts. It makes a very big difference how you approach us. Huge. Yeah. I'm an extrovert. They have all sorts of activities here, but I go, really? No.
And something else that comes to my mind, which is whether it be when someone's diagnosed with dementia, or if it's grief, or when there is grief with dementia anyway, from all the way through, is around those circles around people. So who is in that circle, who is able to support, who you're able to connect. It's not just that person is not by themselves, but we need to support the carers as well, which is part of why we're here too. And educate, because people don't just know this stuff. They need support to know how they can look after their loved one and how they can look after themselves as well. Women will talk and converse, but men will do things together. So that's, why Men's Shed is so successful here in Australia, which is men coming together to build for a purpose, whether it be for a charity, or whether it be for a small community, or it be for a children's hospital, whatever it might be that they're together building, they're doing together. So we need to, whether it's Men's Shed or some other place, is a way that we can bring people together to do things together, whether it be residential care, community care, whatever it might be, which will hopefully save some men and give them that opportunity to reconnect into life.
Purpose is the whole thing. If I didn't continue working at 75, I don't know what I'd do.
You said something about introverts and extroverts. And one of the things that I'm really big on is what I call preferred interaction style. And that has a lot of different meanings. I've got people that their preferred interaction style is mischief. There are some people that just need an ear. But I also come down to those that are extroverted and introverted. And what I worry about is the men that are introverted that won't go to Men's Shed. And that's where I'm trying to think, because I've just been asked to run a men's group at one of my services. And we're getting all the guys that we didn't expect to come, all the experts sitting at the end of the table. And I talk something in the middle, I go, what the hell is this? And then I just believe it. And they do all the talking, which is unusual for me. So I'm wondering, Linda, how do you go with massage therapy, which is a very intimate kind of setting, with people that are more introverted and more shy, and particularly as the cognitive changes come? How do you deal with someone that is really quite feeling resistant or nervous about you, placing your hands on them?
I go very slowly and I talk to them and let them know what I'm there for. And because I had one die recently, so she was a wonderful lady, but she couldn't talk very much. She had so many things happen to her in her life that she was a mess physically as well as mentally to some degree. And she could come and go. But we got to trust one another because I talked to her. I didn't just put my hands on her. I said, I'm going to do this now. Then once she got used to what I was doing, I didn't have to do that anymore.
A story I saw on 60 Minutes in Australia quite a number of years ago, where this older lady was having a massage. That was her only skin-to-skin, human skin-to-skin contact that she had. And we talk about skin hunger, and massage can absolutely minimize that. And she said it was once a month. She had a massage, and once a month, that was the most skin to human contact she had. You think of a baby being born, the first thing we do now is put that baby in enable skin to skin contact. So Michael talks about how our connection with people is sort of like from a 1 to a 7, and how quite often we just work in that 3 to 4. So at the lower end of the scale, it's that that transactional, almost like going to the grocery store. You're polite, you engage, how are you? It's very minimal. And then at that other end of the scale, it is that quite intimate. It doesn't necessarily have to be sexual, but it's that intimate of person to person. And with what you're doing and that trust that you build, you're moving past that middle and enabling that intimate connection for a human being or that person that is with you.
One of the things that I do like to do, and very important, Linda, is I like to touch hands, shoulder, fat, whatever that might be. That's my destination. You know, I know that we contacted, but also when I'm working with people that are responding with fear and aggression and not an uncertainty about people's approach, I know when I put my hand out or I reach out that they take my hand that we've connected.
So, Linda, why have you joined the Open the Doors movement?
I knew there had to be something more. I joined one with some friends of mine. There was so much air taken out of the room by one person. I had brought in a guest, and we were all women, and he was a man, and she shut him down so badly that he just got off. And I thought that was just so rude of somebody. And it was because he and I have been in the system, and she didn't think you could come in and fix anything from inside. And I'm going, you need both. You know, you need people who are interested in changing the system from inside, from outside, from any direction.
What needs to be changed for the doors to be opened?
Well, I think there's so many things that need to change that's why there's so many people around the world wanting to change, because they all have their own little places. I want to change the mobility device problem, but that branches off into several other bigger problems to get to that problem. And one is, like I told you, I confronted my doctor because I kept seeing people in his office that would come in with canes, wheels, wheelchair, walkers, whatever, and go back out the same, and nothing had ever changed. And I finally said, why is that? He goes, well, I don't have 2 hours to do an assessment. I said, all you have to do is refer out. And I don't see you doing that. Doctors need to see the need and understand that they don't have to do the assessments. All they have to do is refer out to somebody who will do the assessment. And the other direction is our licensing. Licensing comes under either Title 22 or the Nursing Home Reform Act. Both of them talk about mobility devices, not per se, but in safety and restraint. But these people have come in for whatever reason over the years and decided that seatbelts are a restraint, and therefore nobody gets them. I want to ask them, if a seatbelt is a restraint, so you don't let them have it, and then they fall out on their butts and they have osteoporosis and they break a hip and they're in the bed for life because of that, which is more of a restraint. The problem is they have all the power with none of the responsibility for the outcome. What I'm trying to get out there is that they need to work together, and they also need to share in the outcome responsibility. It has to be done. I mean, I'm 75. I'm sorry. I don't have forever that I'm going to be up and around.
Well, thank you for all you do. It's really something.
Okay, my guys, I'll let you go.
Thanks, Linda. Bye.
Thank you, Linda.